Now moving on to the fifth Aurelia lab, perhaps a little bit misnamed because the lab in fact is focused exclusively on Happy. That is, we're preparing the donation web app for JSON Web Tokens. So let's get into it. First of all, we talk about the web tokens themselves, what they are very briefly, and then we'll see how we implement JWT authentication in Happy in our particularly in our API. So what are they? Why would use them? What's their structure? How do they work? And in general, setting us up for the next step. So it's a standard way of communicating securely between two applications. It allows us to package up in a JSON object a fairly compact string. It's quite self-contained, and that can be appended or used in URLs or otherwise packaged up to exchange reliable information between two parties. We're using it for authentication largely. So when our Aurelia client authenticates to our donation web application or donation API, currently we don't have any authentication really, apart from a very exposed check of username and password. Here we'll be hardening that up, and we'll be expecting to get back a token, which we then use on all subsequent API calls. So we're using it for authentication and for information exchange, I guess. All of our APIs will include the token, otherwise the API won't be successfully processed. I'm going to review it very briefly, what it looks like. Header, payload, and signature. It's one long string separated by dots. You can read the string, it's sent in plain text, but of course it will be encrypted, so only the two parties concerned really will know what's in it. The header has some hashing algorithm. You decide which one you're going to use, and the specific strings put in there that are understood by any system that's built using JWT. These are the base64 encoded, this header. And the payload itself contains additional what are called claims, and these we can think of those as being attributes that we can insert in here that will be encrypted and that we can recover out of them. Now, there are different types of these attributes. They're reserved, public or private claims. Reserved claims are known attributes like issuer or expiry time. Public claims might be specific attributes you put in there, maybe some user information. And private claims then are something that you might agree between the two parties. The signature then is the third part, and this is where the smarts happen to ensure that it's digitally signed and can't be broken. So an example there of a header, payload, and the signature would end up having gone through crypto as one big long string like we're seeing at the end here. And if you go to jwt.io, you may be able to decrypt the token, provided you know the secret that was used to perform the cryptography. So let's look at an example. Here's a header. We're getting the algorithm and the type of the thing. The claims, which include the issuer, expiry date, scope, whatever, and the cryptographic signature. Claims themselves, well, this is something we decide in code. We could be putting in specifically who's issued the token, a URL to the issuing domain, the expiry date, who it represents, say subscriber, scope, which might be what the given user is entitled to do when they're interacting with an API. So we will be then attempting to packaging up the token and sending it with our HTTP requests. And in particular, we would use one of the HTTP headers, authorization, bearer, and tack on our token in there, and we'll be seeing this in code shortly. Our general idea then is, we'll have to do this when we implement it, is to authenticate a user. User provides a username and password, and if the username and password match, if they're in our database, instead of returning a cookie, which is what we've been doing to date, we would return a web token. And the web token then would be used subsequently on all other interactions. Now we're going to leave the cookies in place. We could replace them, but we're not. We're only going to use the web tokens for the APIs that we've been developing in our app. Okay, we'll look at that now shortly when we look at how we're going to implement it in Donation Web.